Well, hi, everybody. I am Shari Foos, founder of the Narrative Method, and I am so psyched today to have this special event in which my friends, Dr. Leah Hanes and Nolan Bushnell, an incredible combination of minds and talents, have come together to write an extraordinary book that is making an impact that hopefully will change the way we think about modern education. Dr. Leah Hanes I'm sorry, that's not right. You have been a champion for STEAM education, which is science, tech, engineering, arts, and math for years. And she leads the Two Bit Circus Foundation since 2013, using her expertise to advocate for a more engaging and future-proof approach to learning. Nolan Bushnell is a serial entrepreneur who has ignited two entertainment revolutions, first with Atari, birthing the video game industry through classics like Pong, and later with Chuck E. Cheese, merging pizza and arcade games with family fun. He's founded over 20 companies with innovations in robotics and personal computers, and that's not the half of it. So suffice it to say, welcome, and please enter and sign in, please. And if I ask a question, you can fight each other over who speaks. So first say hello. Leah?
Hi, nice to meet you all. Good to see you. And I'm actually back because I was at the Narrative Method throughout the pandemic every Sunday morning and Tuesday evening. So
Absolutely. And you were among our core group of people who kept each other together during the pandemic, for sure. Nolan, how are you doing?
I'm always having a good time. My rule is that if I'm not having a good time, I just quit doing it. And so,
Well, and that is such a perfect place to begin. So I want, first of all, as an entree into what you were talking about before we began, about how long it's been since the educational model and system and values have, been in this country. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, well, the school is broken, and it works for some kids, but it doesn't work for all. And in fact, it's detrimental to a lot of kids. And I think that there's some real structural problems. And whenever I look for structural problems, I say, what's the foundation that's built on? And if the foundation's rotten, then the whole structure is rotten. And Leah and I have pretty much decided that no grades and no grades is the one core concept that can fix a lot of things. And so when people say no grades, what do you mean? And the real answer is that kids shouldn't be batch processed. They should be able to compete with themselves and to be the best they can be at the level of their maturity. Some kids mature quickly, some kids don't. And so to have them all thrown into the same classroom, it's inherently unfair.
Let me guess, you didn't enjoy school.
No, I enjoyed it.
Oh, you did?
But I enjoyed it on my own terms. Like I would often cut classes with something that I wasn't interested in and audit a class that I wasn't registered for and that sort of thing. And there was a time where I thought that my pathway forward was going to be a professor. But I had to put myself through college, so I always had a job, and so my grades weren't great because I was constantly working and cutting class and things like that. But no, I like school.
Let me ask.
I think probably the 8 kids that Nolan has 8 children, and I think it was watching that group go through school that kind of gave Nolan the idea that school wasn't working for everybody.
So Leah, how did the two of you come together creatively?
Well, it was a conversation at the bar at Brent's facility in the Arts District. And I like one of the things that Nolan said that really struck me, because he told me he'd been working on a book about education and he asked me if I'd be interested in co-authoring. Well, who says no to Nolan Bushnell, really? My first thought was, well, what about, like, what if we disagree on something? What if it's really, and then I thought, you know, he has 8 kids. He's had lots of people disagree. So, but the truth is, once we got into, like, Nolan sent me what he had written, and once I started reading it, I felt like, you know, we're coming from 2 very different perspectives on it,
Sure.
but that we were meeting at the same place in that this is broken and it hasn't worked. Not even like it, for the majority of kids, it has not worked. We don't graduate the majority of kids in our country anymore. And so, the comment that Nolan made that really got me interested was about attention deficit disorder and how, you know, some kids who've been diagnosed with it have it and it's an issue, but a lot of kids who've been diagnosed are just bored with school. It's not, and he said, if you put them in front of their favorite video game, you'll see how well they can focus. And then, you know, at the same time as my grandson, who was about 6, was telling me this really elaborate story of something they had created in Roblox. And all of it was, you know, interesting and fanciful, but none of it meant anything to the rest of his life other than I knew this kid can memorize things because he had to do it for the game. And it made, you know, I was thinking, like, if only we could put meaningful information in those games that kids are playing. And that's when, you know, and also the no grades and no grades thing, I completely agree with Nolan. Like 20 years ago, we couldn't do individualized learning without really burdening a teacher. But now we can. The technology exists. And if we could take the early humiliation out of school, we could heal a lot of kids. Because, and you know, I was not a kid who liked school. I went because that's where the other kids were. But you know, it was a lot of that Charlie Brown want between the playing with kids and sitting in class, want, and then play with kids again. But I didn't do well. I was considered a slow learner. When I was in high school, my typing teacher told me I was wasting her time and mine, and I should take shop. And it wasn't until, you know, I was an adult, and I had always said to myself that when my kids finish school, I'm going to go back. Even if I'm the slowest kid in the class, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do my bachelor's. And I did, which is where I met you, Shari, at Antioch. And I went back and did my BA, and then I just got carried away, and I did the master's and I did the PhD. And I loved being in school at that stage because it was more independent learning. You know, we were in classes, but it was, you weren't comparing yourself to anyone else. There were no, you know, you got an A and you got a D. It was really just self-education, and it felt wonderful.
So let me ask you something about your vision, your shared vision, your individual visions. What is a typical day in kindergarten? We're all 5, all of us here. We go, oh, me.
Well,
What happens?
I think kindergarten is probably the only class that makes sense the way it's done. Like
True.
it is really about creativity. I mean, Sir Ken Robinson, his first TED Talk that really built TED.
Yeah.
It's about, does school kill creativity? Because 98% of the kids in kindergarten saw themselves as creative. But by the time they were in high school, it was a much smaller percentage that saw themselves as creative, something like 20% in high school. But I think it's the older grades where I would say, Nolan, you should describe what the classroom looks like, because that really was your
okay. Yeah, middle school, high school, when you're completely screwed up and you think it's only you.
right.
Well, I really think that screen time, playing games, learning, I think labs are important, hands-on. I think that makerspace is really important with 3D printing, and now, you know, everybody needs to learn how to use AI today. You know, these are things that are just happening now. And the no grades, A, B, C, D, that implies competition. They're going to winners and losers. And when in fact, you know, why? If you're behind, maybe you're just a little bit slower learner. Maybe you think more deeply. But testing is imprecise because some people get anxiety in tests. And so getting rid of grades, or you only compete with yourself. That's the nature of video game. You work and then you solve this round, and then you go to the next round, and then you go to the next round, and you build. And I think that was without judgment and without perception of where you are in the pecking order. I think.
Let me ask you something. Do you believe that honing those skills can be applied to relationships?
Yes and no. Relationships, relationships are complex, even for adults. And where you're, young teens, where they're bursting with hormones and they don't know how to deal with the opposite sex and how to deal with their peer group. And I think that competition, by its nature, is overstating the ability to be the man, king of Bunkers Hill. And I think a lot of that is toxic. I think that we should all not necessarily stand around and sing Kumbaya, but I think that I feel like I have a lot of friends that were not competitive at all. We just kind of like to hang out together. And I'm not sure where the competition is fostered or where the provenance of it is.
Well, we certainly get taught that early in school. We're the best.
Yeah.
We're right in the middle of the map. You wouldn't know, if you're an American, you wouldn't know that maybe that's not the middle.
Right.
But I'm gonna stop it right here, not because I want to, but because this is a good thing to come back to. Not only that, I really, really want to build on the idea of competition. So I am shortly going to show you my screen with the concept of the week, which is awe. And you will see a photo and get the first prompt. And based on that, you are invited to write in any style, in any voice for 7 minutes. It's not going to be the best piece of writing you ever did, but it might blow your mind. Just follow your imagination and allow that, where your imagination goes, to fascinate you more than the perfection of the writing. So that's the idea around that. Don't worry about writing, exactly to the prompt. Just write whatever comes up.
Can I use AI?
I'm sorry?
Can I use AI to cheat for me?
No, but because there's no transcribing. I should say there's no AI here. But there are some AHs. Just kidding. It was just a convenient joke. There's actually not one AH here. So I can say that for sure. Anyway, let me stop recording.